Hello, everyone, and welcome to the introduction to OCM, Oracle Cloud Migrations. This is a new service available in OCI that automates the migration of your VMs from on-premises environments to Oracle Cloud infrastructure. So today you will see how this will help you. Speaking about who we are, as I mentioned before, I am Violeta. I'm a digital adoption manager for live events in EMEA. I am based in Bucharest, and today I'm joined by Richard, who is an OCI specialist director in Oracle EMEA, and who will be your presenter for the OCM session. All right, that was all on my side. Richard, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Violetta, and good afternoon, good morning, everyone. Let me go and share my screen. Thanks for that introduction. And nice to see you all on board. For people that are not watching live, welcome on this replay. And as I said, my name is Richard Garsthagen. I'm one of the solution specialists within Oracle. And I actually have a specialization in the VMware solution that we have in our cloud and the Oracle Cloud Migration Service, the one that we will actually be talking about today. I've been working 11 years for Oracle, but actually before that, I worked 9 years for VMware, hence my specialization still doing the VMware thing, also now in the Oracle Cloud. And even longer than before that, I actually worked also for Citrix. So I've always been working for US companies. I also run a blog. If you ever want to know more about me and what I do around the Oracle Cloud, you can find that on my blog, oc-blog.com. I make there scripts, I put benchmarks there, all that kind of stuff. Now you can contact me on my email, richard.garsthagen@oracle.com. But as Violetta said, I'm also on that Slack channel. In that Slack channel, there's a special channel called Cloud Coaching that will be monitoring as well. So if you later on have questions around the topic I'll be talking about today, feel free to ask in that Slack channel, and we'll be able to respond on that. And I don't think it's just me. I think my whole team will be in that session as well. So what are we going to talk about today? We are going to talk about today, our goal is to help customers move their workloads from their own data centers into the Oracle Cloud. And I'm already using the word move and also sometimes migrate. I still have to choose a particular word there because, of course, there's a big difference. You can move workloads and you can migrate workloads. But that's really what the topic of today is. How can you get stuff that you're running today in your own data center very easily and preferably, of course, automated into the Oracle Cloud. Now, as I said, there's two concepts. There is something called move and something called migrate. When I talk about moving, you can actually move a virtual machine into the Oracle Cloud as is. And that virtual machine won't change, won't see any other virtual machine hardware. It will keep running exactly the same. And the way and how we can do move strategies is by making sure that whatever virtualization platform you're running today in your own data center, that you can have that same virtualization platform in the Oracle Cloud. So the Oracle Cloud actually allows you to run, for instance, a VMware platform, an Hyper-V platform, a KVM platform, an Oracle VM platform. So whatever virtualization stack that you're running today, you can actually have a similar virtualization stack of that in our cloud. And therefore, you can move a virtual machine from your on-premise virtualization to an equal virtualization stack in our cloud, and therefore that virtual machine is just being moved. It won't see any different virtual machine hardware. If it was already running today with old crappy operating systems and applications, it will still keep on running with those old crappy application systems and that kind of stuff. It is super, super easy to do. Now, the other alternative is to actually migrate a workload. You see here on the right side. And migrating, of course, will be taking a virtual machine from your on-premise environment, coming off maybe from VMware. In this case, today we'll talk about specifically coming off from a VMware platform, and moving that to a native OCI virtual machine. Now, of course, that is a migration. What do I mean with that is that the virtual machine's hardware will change. It will suddenly see a different virtual machine hardware. It will have new drivers. It will get a new MAC address. So it really is a migration, and we need to check things and that kind of stuff. If the operating system is modern enough to do those kinds of things and that kind of stuff. So 2 main concepts of how you can actually do this. So let me talk about really what those move and migration studies are within the Oracle Cloud, and then we'll actually specifically zoom into that last one I spoke about. The first method that you can move a virtual machine into the Oracle Cloud with is by actually doing a manual migration. And that means is that you can export any of your virtual machines that you have today, export that as like an OVA file, and it comes with a VMDK file, a virtual disk file. And you can take that VMDK and you can import that natively into OCI. So OCI actually supports importing various disk formats. We also support, by the way, exporting back to those disk formats. So it's not just importing, you can also later on take it back. And then you can create a custom image on that in the Oracle Cloud and power that on. And hopefully, if it's a relatively modern operating system, that should function. But there's a lot of labor involved in doing this. And if you're just doing one virtual machine, and this is a perfectly fine model. But the moment you want to start doing multiple virtual machines, and especially if you want to do this with very limited amount of downtime, you probably want to look at some other alternative approaches. Now, the second approach is that you actually move your workloads, and that is by making sure that in the Oracle Cloud, you have a similar virtualization platform than that you have on-premise. And today we're focusing on the VMware stack. So we have in the Oracle Cloud something called the Oracle Cloud VMware solution, which is a ready-to-use VMware service in our cloud. So you can click a button and you can get a fully VMware environment provisioned for you, fully with VMware ESX, vSphere, all the components of VMware, and then you can actually move your virtual machines over. Now, it is super easy to use. It is almost zero risk to move the workloads, as I said, because they don't really change. You can even do things like live migration, vMotion, if you extend the network, so you can move virtual machines without any downtime. But the downside is that you do need this VMware platform in our cloud. And a VMware platform in our cloud typically is not small. You need at least 3 bare metal servers to run this service. That's due to it uses local storage for vSAN. And of course, if one server fails, you don't want to have any problems with your storage. So that's why we dictate that you need to have, for production environments at least, a minimum of 3 servers. So we do support single host provisioning, but we would definitely not recommend that for production purposes. So it does require a lot. So if you're just looking at trying to move 10 or 20 virtual machines or 50 virtual machines, likely that VMware environment in our cloud is just economically not very feasible. So that is really where we now end up with this new scenario that we have, is where we have this new service called the Oracle Cloud Migration Service. And the Oracle Cloud Migration Service is a service that automates the process of migrating your virtual machines into the Oracle Cloud, and it will just migrate them to native OCI virtual machines. So they can be any size, any shape. You can turn them on or off when you need them and that kind of stuff. So you get all the full flexibility of the Oracle Cloud. Now, the only downside is it is a migration. So sometimes it's technically a little bit more complicated. And it does also mean that it has to run a relatively modern operating system. So it can run in our cloud. So for instance, it has to be a 64-bit operating system. We don't support running natively, at least 32-bit operating systems. If you do need those kinds of things, then again, you would need to run your own virtualization stack in the Oracle Cloud, and then you can actually do those kind of things. So that is what the Oracle Cloud Migration Service is all about. And we're going to talk, and I'm actually going to show you that today. But the main balance here is really, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to move just one virtual machine into the cloud? Are you trying to move multiple virtual machines into the cloud? That will help you decide if you're going to go down the manual route or if you're going to use some of these services. If you want to integrate any of the things that you move with native OCI services, that of course is never a problem. It doesn't matter if you move or migrate your virtual machines. In all cases, whatever you put in the Oracle Cloud gets the full flexibility and the full feature-rich portfolio of the Oracle Cloud, so that you can use its native load balancers, you can use its native vulnerability scanning services, and all of the other services that we have in the Oracle Cloud can then suddenly be directly connected with whatever workloads that you are moving in. Now, if you do run on top of your own platform, so on top of VMware, for instance, or on top of Hyper-V or KVM, when you're running your own virtualization stack in the Oracle Cloud, you can fully also decide what level of CPU and memory oversubscription you do. We do support memory oversubscription in the Oracle Cloud natively as well, but there we only have 3 models: 1-to-1, so no oversubscription. That's actually the default, by the way. In the Oracle Cloud, by default, we do not oversubscribe any resources, but you also have the option to oversubscribe 1-to-2 or 1-to-8. So there are a bit of a differences between, depending on your workloads and your wishes and desires, on what is the best suitable strategy for you. But let's focus today on this new service, this Oracle Cloud Migration Service. This is an end-to-end service to help you with the full automation process of migrating your workloads. And what I mean with that is it's not just focusing on the actual migration itself, but it actually is also focusing on making sure that you can plan it correctly. So you can do an inventory of your on-premise environment that is visible within the Oracle Cloud. You can inspect all the virtual machines, what their previous performance is, help judge to what type of shape that should be moving into the Oracle Cloud, do all that planning. You can even get a cost estimation beforehand, so you know what it will cost when you start moving this into the Oracle Cloud. So it's a really full-fledged service to help you build a full migration plan, take care of the actual migration, but also make sure that you can inspect it, you can monitor it, you know its costing, really have all those side elements around it as well. So it's a full service to cover your entire migration plan in total. Now, from a technical element perspective, and I'll show you that during my my live demonstration, it consists out of a few pillars. And the first pillar is that we can actually deploy an agent in your own on-premise VMware environment. And using that agent, we can do a full discovery of your own on-premise environment. That requires, of course, that you're running VMware vSphere, so that's the minimum requirement. vSphere 6.5 or above, and it allows us to get an inventory of all your virtual machines and inspect them, what operating system are running, how many disks they have, their networks, and all that kind of stuff. And we'll actually show you that, or we'll bring that into an inventory in OCI. Now, after that, you can actually start making your migration plan. So you can say, okay, I want to move these 10 virtual machines as phase 2 or phase 1. I want to move these 20 virtual machines as phase 2. You can estimate what shape and that kind of stuff they should be, and the tool can actually help you with that. And then the tool can actually do the replication of those virtual machines. And at some point, whenever you're ready to cut over, is actually start powering on those virtual machines in the Oracle Cloud. And I'll take you through these steps in the live demonstration. Now, common question, of course, asked, is there any cost to this service? That's an easy answer, well, relatively easy answer. The service itself is completely free of charge. So there's no cost of using the Oracle Cloud Migration Service. Even with a free trial account, you can start using the service. The only thing is when you're starting to do migrations, there are some resources needed to do the conversion of disks and those kinds of things. And those are virtual machines that are automatically spun up by the Oracle Cloud Migration Service. These are normal virtual machines inside your own tenancy, and they of course will consume resources, so you would have to pay for those during that period when you're doing some of those conversions and that kind of stuff. Underneath it, of course, you're using some storage when you start doing replication. We're using object storage and block storage, so that cost is there as well. So there is, in the end, there is some cost from a resource consumption perspective that you would need to actually do the migrations with and to store the data, but the service itself actually has no cost to it whatsoever. So enough PowerPoint. Let me actually go and show you actually what this looks like. Let me share my screen. Here you're seeing, hopefully you're seeing, I think this should be fine. You're seeing the Oracle Cloud. And before I actually dive into the Oracle Cloud, I also have an on-premise VMware environment. Technically, my on-premise VMware environment, I'm cheating a little bit, sits in the Oracle Cloud as well. I'm using the VMware environment that I have there, but it doesn't matter where this sits. This could be any VMware environment that you have. And in this VMware environment, I have a virtual machine, for instance, that I would like to move inside the Oracle Cloud. This is a machine I purposely built just for this demonstration, so I can go to this virtual machine, and you'll see that this is my on-premise web server is happily running and that kind of stuff. Now imagine I want to migrate this. So I can, for instance, go into this virtual machine, and I'm just going to make a change to it. So you can actually see that what I'm doing actually is real. So I hope you can somewhat read this, but let me just quickly change the web page on this machine. And I will say that this machine, I will be moved to the cloud soon. So that should be updated on my web server. There you go. I'll be moved to the cloud soon. Now, what I can do is this machine, and I'm going a little bit in a strange order. It has to do with that it takes some time to migrate. I already have set up for this machine the actual migration plan. So I can go to this virtual machine here. I have a migration plan already for that. I'll come back to this, what this migration plan means. I have this the VM here. And I can actually say on this virtual machine, go replicate. Now, keep in mind, in my case, this virtual machine still is actually running on-premise. So it is still sitting here. It is still, where is it? It's still responding. So I don't have to per se incur always an entire amount of downtime. And I'll come back to this and I'll explain the replication to you. So I just set this in motion just so you can see it is actually starting to replicate. You'll start seeing that this virtual machine is actually in my local environment, that a snapshot is being created. And after that snapshot is created, we have now a fixed, consistent disk. We will start replicating that disk over into the Oracle Cloud. Now, let me just pause or take a step back. I just wanted to put this into motion because this does take a few minutes to complete. Let me just first start back off at the Oracle Cloud migration service in total. We have this thing now going on in the background. We can wait for that. Hopefully when I'm done with everything else, it should be ready. So this is the Oracle Cloud Migration Service. And it is, if you find it in the menu, if you go to Migration and Disaster Recovery, you'll find here this section called Cloud Migration. So this is what that service is about. And you'll find here also the steps pretty much of what you need to do. But the first thing actually that you will need to do to actually use this service is to allow in your tenancy that the Oracle Cloud Migration Service is allowed to do things, so that it is allowed to create an inventory. It is allowed to reach your object storage, to do the synchronization and that kind of stuff. So if you don't know how to set it up, and you likely don't, you can go here to the question mark on the top right, and then you can click here on Cloud Migration Overview. I don't know if you know, but anywhere in the Oracle Cloud, if you click on that question mark, it takes you in context to our documentation pages. So in this case, it takes me to the Oracle Cloud Migration Service. And you will find here at the bottom of this that there's something called IAM policies. And here you'll find all the policies that you need to set up for this service, both as a user who can use the Oracle Cloud Migration Service, and also for the service to have access to object storage and those kinds of things. And this is just a matter of copy and pasting this into your policies on-prem in the cloud. Now, we are actually working on having a ready-to-use Terraform for this. We're about to publish that. So if you want to not do the manual copy and pasting and that kind of stuff, feel free to reach out. I'll send you the Terraform script, and then you can have an automated way to have all those policies applied. So after that is done, you're ready to use the service itself. And the first thing that you actually do is you will create what we call a remote connection. And this is really where you say, I'm going to create my my demo VMware environment. So this is your on-premise VMware environment. With that environment here, I can then actually create remote connections. Now, those remote connections are done by actually downloading an OVA file. So you'll find that here. This is an OVA file that I can actually download. And that OVA file I need to deploy in my own on-premise VMware environment. So if I go back to my VMware environment here, you see that I have here this OCB appliance. This is something I didn't install or configure myself. I just imported the OVA file, click next and next finish. and that machine is then running. And the only thing that you then need to do is you go to that IP address of that machine on port 3000, and this is all in the documentation, and it will give you a registration page. I think mine is already registered, so I don't think you'll see it. And that will register that virtual machine. So you'll see that actually in my environment. If I go to my remote connections environment, I am using this one here. You see that I have this agent. I can see its health state. It's happily running. It's taking care of replication. It's taking care of discovery. It's taking care of all those tasks. So that's the first thing that you need to. And this really allows you to create a connectivity between the Oracle Cloud and your on-premise VMware environment. Now, after you've done that, it will automatically run a discovery and that kind of stuff. And that means that I will get to see in OCI an inventory. And the inventory that you're seeing here, at least the overview of the inventory, is not my Oracle Cloud inventory. This is the inventory of my on-premise VMware environment. So I can go here to my virtual machines. And in my case here, this, where is it? I was using this one, I think. I can take this virtual machine here, and I will see that virtual machine lives here as well. So I have that virtual machine here, and so this is still my virtual machine on-premise. It tells me the specifications about that virtual machine, its IP address. I can see its historical data, so I can see that this machine does nothing. And all this, of course, helps me to judge to what shape and size I need to convert this virtual machine to. I can find out its network information, the amount of disk it has any GPU cards. So I really have a good understanding of that. Now, based on that I have all that information, I actually can create then a migration plan. So I can say I want to create migrating one of my virtual machines over. So for me to create a migration plan is, let's say I have a migration plan for my application servers, migration for application server, and I can connect this to a schedule for replication. I'll come back to that. And I can add now my virtual machines that I have in my inventory into this plan. Now, I'll take one here, my application server, and of course I can add 10, 20, 100 virtual machines in here, everything that I want to have as part of this process. Just selecting one. I'm just going to decide on in which object storage bucket I'm going to replicate to use the bucket for replication. So I'll select that. And I'll hit next, initial plan. So first test plan. So you can create multiple plans. First test plan, because of course likely what you will do is you will first create a test plan. So while everything is still running, you do a migration, you power it on in the Oracle Cloud, see if it all is happy, and only after you're confident that works, then you go back to your on-premise environment, power it off, do one other cycle of replication, and it will just send over the change delta. And then you can power it on in the Oracle Cloud. So that gives you a very short cutover window in the Oracle Cloud. So it will create this migration plan. And as part of this plan, let me actually this takes a minute. So let me just show you a different one. Part of this migration plan here is it will show you the costing of what this environment would cost when it runs in the Oracle Cloud. It's loading there. So it will show you the costing of what this will cost. It will show you the strategy it's using to set up to do the matching of what virtual machine types do. And you can actually create different strategies based on CPU utilization, how many times a day it hits a certain percent, and that kind of stuff. And you will see an overview in the end of the virtual machine that you put in your plan and what we are migrating it to. Now you can still overwrite that. I can still actually go here and I can reconfigure that. If I say I want to have that to be on a different shape, I want it to be a different type, I want it to be connecting to a different network. So all of that is still very easily customizable. Now, when you then have that migration plan, so we'll go back here to my demo migration server. then you can start doing the replication. Now, I said I had this virtual machine here. I think it just finished the replication. And based on that, it can now actually go say, oh, let me go and power this on in my own environment. So if I go back to my migration plan, demo migration plan here, I can create something called an RMS stack, a resource manager stack. So this will automatically create a resource manager stack, a Terraform script that you can run in Resource Manager in the Oracle Cloud that will then completely power on that entire environment. So if this was 20 virtual machines with multiple disks, different virtual machines connect to different networks, all of that information is stored into that Terraform file, and it will power it on. And in case when you're testing this, you can deploy that. And when you're done with the test, you just click on destroy, and automatically that environment is deleted again. So it also allows you to really do that easy form of testing. Now, in my case, if I go to my migration plan, my demo migration server here, and I go to my asset, I can create this. Now, it does take some time to create the resource plan and provision it. And as I'm just doing one VM, I can cheat a little bit just for time's sakes during this session. I can just go to the disk it created in the Oracle Cloud. So it has created this disk. And I can actually start a new instance from that. So I'm just doing my demo migration web server. And I'll just deploy it. I'm deploying it that I saw in the thing as an E2 thing. That's what the migration service decided. Normally, you won't be doing this by hand. Is that this is normally part of the resource stack that will take care of it, and I'll create this. So this will now power on this this virtual machine. Let me just quickly see when it comes live. So this virtual machine is still running, of course, on premise. So I'm not doing this as an actual cutover, because then I would have powered off my virtual machine. So 10.100.11.220. Now, it takes a little bit of time, of course, for the virtual machine to power on and that kind of stuff. But as I said, this is a replication. Now, I have cheated a little bit because what I have done for this web server is I already did, before I launched today's session, a full replication. So my virtual machine was already fully replicated. And the only thing is, as you saw earlier, so I made a change to the web server pages. So I went into that machine. And now when I did that final replication, it only replicated that delta. So now if I go to this IP address, so this is the actual virtual machine now sitting in the Oracle Cloud, and I'll go there, you'll see that I'm going to get this web page. And as you see, it has this updated text that I just updated into my on-premise virtual machine. This machine has now that same thing. And also, as part of the script, it has all the detection that runs now in the Oracle Cloud. It shows me all the information of the Oracle Cloud. So as you can see, I can really, in just a few minutes, I could have powered off that virtual machine, did that final replication phase, and then powered on in the Oracle Cloud, and have a relatively short cutover window of that virtual machine. So that virtual machine is now migrated. I can or trash the on-premise environment, or I can trash this environment and instead do another test cycle. And part of those migration plans, you can really manage that concept. So at some point when you're done with this migration plan, you can actually mark the migration to be completed. And this is how you can keep track of all the steps that you're doing. If you've done your test cycle, if you've done your Q&As, your performance cycle test, and then you actually have your actual cutover migration plan. So we really support that whole process of helping you through those concepts. Now, I see a question coming up, what the minimum required bandwidth is. A very commonly asked question. How long will it take to replicate, right? Now, that of course depends. It depends on the bandwidth that you have, but more importantly, on how much changes are going on inside your virtual machines. Because even if you don't have that much bandwidth, you can turn on a replication and it might take, I don't know, a full day or 2 days to replicate its first full cycle. But after that, if there's not that many changes going on in those 2 days, then that next cycle is going to be significantly shorter. So it does depend very much on your workload. If it's a very static workload, and even though the virtual machine itself might be very large, the replication process will still take a long time maybe, but your downtime will be significantly limited. It will be very tiny actually to do so. Now, just to remember, this is a migration, and therefore there are some other considerations, right? It is not just a move. There are some things that you need to enable to really be successful with this. And the first things that you have to do is you have to enable something called block tracking to do this smart form of replication. And this is actually a feature of VMware that you need to turn on to your virtual machines. So if I take my environment here, and if I go to this virtual machine here, you will see that if I go to the advanced settings of this virtual machine, it's in the advanced settings of, I don't know why it's there. In the advanced settings, it's really not that advanced. But yet you have a feature called CTK, change block tracking enabled. This needs to be enabled on your virtual machine. By default, this is not enabled in your VMware environment unless you're already running products like a Veeam or a Zerto, who also all use this technology. So check if that feature is enabled on your virtual machine, because if not, you need to enable that, and then that virtual machine does first needs to be rebooted before you're ready to do this change-only replication style. If you don't have this enabled, every replication cycle, the entire disk would have to be sent over, and of course, that would not be healthy for your cutover window. So that's really something that you have to consider. Really making sure that your VMware block tracking features are enabled on the virtual machines that you want to migrate. Another thing is that you probably want to consider, or in some cases really have to, is you do need to do some preparation work in the virtual machines that are still running on premise. And that really depends on the operating system that they're running. So for instance, for Windows, Windows by default does not have the para-virtualized drivers installed that we will use when we power it up as a virtual machine in the Oracle Cloud. So that means it won't have the right drivers for its SCSI controller, it won't have the right drivers for its network card, so it literally won't boot. It will get an inaccessible boot device error kind of stuff. So you need to, before you do the migration under Windows, you need to download the Oracle Virtual I/O drivers and then install that. And I put a link in here that shows you on how to do that. This is a link to a blog post, but we have multiple. If you just Google Oracle Virtual I/O driver, you'll find as well. But this explains the process on how to do this. You download it, install it, next, finish. That's it. The drivers are then installed inside that virtual machine. One other thing, if you are running into replications with Windows, you do need to make sure that volume shadow copy is enabled within Windows to do this, the form of replication that we're doing. And there's a VMware knowledge base article about that that I posted as well. So these slides are available afterwards, so you can find that up. Now, for other operating systems, it really depends for Linux what flavor of Linux you're running. So in my case, I'm actually running an Ubuntu instance, and Ubuntu uses these smart names for network cards, right? So in my VMware environment, I actually have a network card interface that's called ENS 160. But actually in the Oracle Cloud, that's a different interface. It's called ENS3. So that means by default, if I would do this migration, the virtual machine won't actually have network connectivity. So what I have done on my virtual machine here, if I do I still have it open? If I go to this virtual machine here, what I have done is I have set up this virtual machine with two network cards. So the ENS 160 is the network card driver of VMware. That's what it's currently using when it is running on VMware. And I just already in parallel have configured this ENS3 driver so that when it powers on in the Oracle Cloud, it already has that. Now, this is not necessarily to do that you have to do this upfront. It's easier if you do it upfront. But just know that in the Oracle Cloud, even when you don't have a virtual machine that is network responsive, you can always still connect to it. We have a feature in the Oracle Cloud called Remote Console. And especially when you start doing migrations, you will definitely start using those kind of services. So if I can take a virtual machine here, for instance, you have a feature here on the left called Remote Console. And this allows you actually to get a connectivity to that virtual machine, no matter if that virtual machine has actual network connectivity. And in this case, I can do this from the console, in the OCI console, because this is text only. This is a Linux VM. If this is a Windows VM, you need, of course, a graphical shell. You need to set up a VNC session. Now, it's explained in there. There's some YouTube videos that if you Google them on as well. But this allows me also directly to log into this virtual machine. And I said, right now, I have access to this virtual machine, no matter if this virtual machine has network connectivity or not. If I would disable networking, I would still have this console session. So you can always get access to this, especially when you start doing these migration plans and maybe something doesn't boot up well and that kind of stuff. You can always use this remote console feature to really understand what is going on in your environment. Now, that being said, that is my little demonstration of how a virtual machine can move and the work that you need to do for that. But just keep in mind that you have multiple options with the Oracle Cloud. If you're just doing one virtual machine, then on our documentation pages, look up bring your own image, and there we'll show you the process on how you can just import manually a VMDK file to object storage. From there, create a custom image and power on a virtual machine. If you have large amounts of virtual machines, especially with older operating systems, and you really don't want to have this risk of migrating your virtual machines, you just want to be able to move them over, then consider really using a similar like platform that you're running today in our cloud, like our Oracle Cloud VMware service, for instance, where you can then have VMware in our cloud, have VMware on-premise, and just move your virtual machines over as well. And that can maybe even just be a temporary phase, by first moving them over like that, and then from there migrating them to OCI, is also something that we see customers do a lot. And then as I said, with this new service, if you want to really directly go down this migration path, you can use the Oracle Cloud Migration Service to make multiple migration plans, phase or step phase all your virtual machines and move them over per network segment, or first your most important VMs or first your least important VMs, in whatever way that you want. And especially if you set up your connectivity well between your on-premise data center and the Oracle Cloud, this can go all very seamlessly. Like in my environment, I have a VPN connection between my home environment and the Oracle Cloud. And as you saw, I can reach, no matter if that virtual machine set in the Oracle Cloud or privately, all on private IP addresses, because all the networking is just connected with each other. And as long as you have good bandwidth there, you can easily move workloads over. And sometimes even not having to even re-IP them if you move an entire network segment over and just change your own routing rules. That's it. I don't know if there are any other questions. I see that my colleagues have been already answering questions on the Q&A window as well. Now, if you want to investigate anything further, as Violetta said, we are offering one-on-one sessions with me or anyone from my team that can actually help you evaluate your migration plan. So you'll find a link here. I think the first one is scheduled for next Tuesday. But if we see that more people want to have these one-on-one calls, we will automatically add additional sessions in there. And if not, just contact us and we will schedule a session with you. We're here to help you. We're here to help you learn on how to actually move your workloads or migrate your workloads into the Oracle Cloud. And with this new service, we really hope that we allow you to do this in a very easy, automated fashion with relatively limited amount of downtime, even if you're trying to move large chunks of virtual machines over towards the Oracle Cloud. That's it for now from my side.
So we really encourage you to register to our channel and then raise your questions even after this live session.
Yeah, I see there was some other questions. But I said one question is OCM, is the Oracle Cloud Migration Service just for VMware or any virtualization technology? As the name already says, it's Oracle Cloud Migration Service. It doesn't specifically focus on VMware, but in this first version of the service, we're only supporting the VMware platform. So for now, the Oracle Cloud Migration Service is something that only can be used with an on-premise VMware environment. If you have something else, if you have like Hyper-V, if you have KVM, then you likely want to see on how you can actually run Hyper-V or KVM in our cloud, and then actually do a move of those workloads. Or also with those products, you can export those disk files and go down the manual route in importing those disk files. So the service right now is specific. The cloud migration service is specifically focused at this moment for an on-premise VMware platform. And I saw there was another question around bandwidth that I've already answered live.
Yeah,
I think that's all the outstanding questions.
Thank you all for attending. Thank you,
you,
Richard, for presenting. And of course, we are waiting you on upcoming events.